Now let's talk about the script. The script was written by Aaron Kruger, who was part of the writing trio team for Revenge of the Fallen, along with Alex Kurtzman and Roberto Orci. Now he's writing the story of Dark of the Moon by himself, and I find that, in a nutshell, I feel that the script was just a bunch of one-liners. I know that's kind of brutal, but that's what it was for me when I was watching it. He wrote in a lot of very over-the-top characters. You got Sam's boss, Jerry Wang, Dutch, played by Alan Tudyk, and John Turturro has always been over-the-top, so I'm used to that. But then when you add more of these over-the-top written characters, it just makes me feel like there's nothing really clever about these characters, the way they were written. The dialogue is very straightforward. I mean, it's written so that there's no real long drawn-out scenes of dialogue. It's a very straightforward type of script where it just is written to move the story along, because it is a very long movie and we really need to get the movie going, and that's what the script delivers. Which brings me to talk about the pacing of the movie. The pacing of the movie is very quick. The movie just moves along at a very, very quick pace. You have your first act, which you start off with a big action sequence, and then it doesn't exactly slow down. You get these sequences with the humans and then robots, humans, robots, humans, robots, and then big action all the way throughout. So it's a good pace, but sometimes you feel that because the action in the last half was just so much, you're just thinking how slow the movie went in the first half. But when you're really watching the movie, it is interesting. But the thing is that it moves at such a fast pace that if you miss something in the first part of when they're telling the story, you kind of feel a little bit lost. Because the first time I watched it, I just felt like, wow, this movie is really moving. You only start feeling it's a long movie when you get to the action, because it is big. It is a big action sequence that's just drawn out, that has many levels to it. Now I want to talk about the humor, and the humor has a lot to do with the script. We were told from Michael Bay himself that he was going to take out the dorky humor. They wrote a character, Jerry Wang. He provided the bulk of the crude jokes. Then you got the parents also did their own brand of humor. It was mainly the mom, actually. But I felt that this one had more crude jokes. It really kind of is unfortunate because the first one had humor from Sam's ad-libbing abilities. It was a lot of these cleverly written lines of dialogue that Sam delivered that made the audience like him. And we don't get a lot of that in this movie. And it feels like they raised the bar in terms of crude humor that they can put in a Transformers movie. And you can tell that this is really Michael Bay's brand of humor, because if he liked how Revenge of the Fallen turned out, then he kind of brought more of that flavor to this one. I just feel that it really has no place in a Transformers movie. Like, don't get me wrong, I laughed at all the jokes and I had a really fun time, but you just feel that, is this movie a comedy? Because you just keep on laughing at all the jokes. They just keep on making one joke after another, and the jokes are not intelligent. They're very sexual in nature, and we have to remember that this is a movie that was based off a kid's toy line. I find that parents are gonna be a bit surprised when they hear the kind of dialogue that is coming out from this movie. The kids might not pick it up, but still, you just kind of think that they shouldn't be exposed to this type of humor. So I'm not a real big fan of the humor. I wish the humor could have been more clever, just like the first one, without the use of over-the-top characters. For over-the-top comedic characters, we already have John Turturro as Agent Simmons, but once you start adding these other ones like John Malkovich or Ken Jeong, you really just kind of forget that you're watching a Transformers movie. It feels like they put more time into figuring out what lines of dialogue would be funny as opposed to what they should really be focusing on, and that is really the robot interactions. Like, for example, a robot would be over here, but then like in the next angle he would be in another part. I don't know, it's just something